Hey everyone, welcome back. We're doing a deep dive today, going on a treasure hunt of sorts. We're digging into global mergers and acquisitions, trying to uncover some of the opportunities that are hidden in the 2025 landscape, especially for industrials and services.
I like that analogy, a treasure hunt.
Yeah,
We've got our map right here, too.
you do. It's this PwC report and
Ah, yes.
PwC, powerhouse in finance and consulting, and their outlook report for 2025.
Yeah, they always have some really good insight into where businesses are putting their money, what sectors are heating up, which ones are cooling down. So it's a good place to start.
Absolutely. And I think it's valuable for, well, anyone really,
Right.
whether you're an investor looking to strike it rich or an entrepreneur trying to navigate this shifting landscape, or just someone like me curious about the direction of things. Where's the world going?
Right. This isn't just about big companies making big moves.
No.
These trends create ripples that affect all of us. I mean, everything from job markets to the types of products and services we'll see in the future.
Okay, so let's unpack this treasure map, shall we? It says here that we're actually expecting to see a rebound in M&A activity in 2025
Uh-huh.
after like a little bit of a dip in 2024.
Yeah, 2024 was a year of a lot of uncertainty.
Oh, yeah.
Global elections, we had lingering inflation, high interest rates. Makes sense that companies would kind of hit the pause button a little bit, but now things are
Yeah.
stabilizing a bit, and they're ready to make their moves.
But here's a twist, though. Geopolitical uncertainty is making companies a little bit more cautious about crossing borders.
Hmm.
So while the overall M&A landscape is expected to grow, we're actually seeing a rise in domestic deals. It's like everyone's decided to stay, dig for gold in their own backyard for a bit.
Well, and that raises an interesting question, right?
Yeah.
If companies are playing it safe, sticking closer to home, could that lead to less global integration, less sharing of technology, resources, maybe even more regional competition? Definitely something to keep an eye on.
For sure. Now, running through almost every sector in this report is this massive vein of gold, this trend that they keep calling the energy transition.
It's almost like the energy transition is this giant magnet pulling industries in new directions
Yeah.
and creating really this gold rush for both established giants and the agile startups.
Absolutely. It's touching everything from how we build houses to how we manufacture cars. Speaking of cars, let's zoom in on some specific sectors here, starting with aerospace and defense.
All right, aerospace and defense report predicts a lot of activity there, fueled by two key factors.
Okay.
First, the travel industry has bounced back after the pandemic. So that means increased demand for aircraft.
Makes sense.
And second, we've got these expanding defense budgets in response to global conflicts, particularly the war in Ukraine, driving demand for defense systems.
Yeah, it's a sobering reminder that, real-world events, they have a huge impact on market trends. The report expects to see more deals focused on, shoring up those crucial supply chains, meeting the rising demand for ammunition and defense systems.
It's about more than just building weapons, though, right? It's also about investments in, like, cutting-edge technology, cybersecurity, logistics. The entire defense ecosystem is gearing up for a major expansion.
Now let's shift gears to the automotive sector.
Okay.
This is where the landscape is really being shaken up, with traditional players having to adapt to, the electric vehicle revolution. It's like they're having to learn how to mine for a completely different type of gold, right?
Yeah. And here's where the PwC report uncovers a fascinating difference between regions.
Okay.
The U.S. has been much slower to adopt EVs than Europe and Asia,
Wow.
and that's potentially a big risk for U.S. automakers. If they don't catch up, they could lose significant market share to their European and Asian competitors.
Yeah, that's a big insight. So while U.S. companies might be focusing on streamlining their internal combustion engine operations, their European and Asian counterparts could be, going on a shopping spree, making acquisitions to bolster their EV dominance, even in the U.S. market.
Exactly. And, this could really impact consumers.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine if car companies start divesting certain types of vehicles.
Oh, wow.
Could affect what's available to buy, how much it costs.
It's not just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about real-world choices we'll be making as consumers. All right, let's move on to a sector that's absolutely booming, business services.
Ah, yes.
Companies are realizing that navigating this increasingly complex business world, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Right.
They need help.
They've struck gold, but they need experts to help them refine it and turn it into something valuable.
Exactly.
Companies are facing everything from geopolitical risks to rapid technological advancements, and they're looking to consultants, IT specialists, niche knowledge providers for guidance.
And the report specifically calls out this growing demand for specialized expertise and how it's driving a lot of M&A activity. Like private equity firms are jumping into this space, consolidating smaller firms, creating these larger platforms.
Yeah, they even give an example that many listeners might find relatable. Remember Grant Thornton, the big accounting and consulting firm?
Well, yeah.
Well, a private equity firm recently acquired a stake in their U.S. business.
Oh, wow.
It just shows you how this trend of consolidation is playing out at the highest levels.
That's a great point. And, consolidation can often lead to greater efficiency, potentially lower costs for clients. So this trend could ultimately benefit businesses seeking these services.
Right. It's like that old saying, two heads are better than one. In this case, it might be a bigger, more integrated firm can solve your complex problems more effectively.
So far, we've uncovered potential opportunities in aerospace and defense, automotive, and the booming world of business services. And we're not done digging yet. Up next, we'll explore the shifting landscapes of engineering and construction and industrial manufacturing. You won't want to miss it. Okay, so let's grab our treasure map and head into the world of engineering and construction. This sector, kind of a mixed bag of opportunities in 2025, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think of it like some areas are experiencing a drought while others have struck a rich vein. Like the PwC report points out that commercial construction is facing some tough times.
Yeah.
Picture those empty office buildings in city centers, a trend I think a lot of us have seen with the rise of remote work.
Yeah, for sure. I know I'm not the only one who's gotten used to working in pajamas, but seriously, this shift towards remote work, it has huge implications for commercial real estate and construction.
Oh, absolutely. It's a perfect example of how, these global trends can really manifest in our daily lives, shaping the demand for these construction projects. But while commercial construction may be struggling, residential construction, that's booming, fueled by these housing shortages in many parts of the world.
So it's kind of a tale of two cities within the sector.
Right.
Some areas struggling, others experiencing a construction frenzy.
And that's where our trusty energy transition theme comes back into play.
Uh-huh.
The report highlights major opportunities in energy transition projects like grid modernization, renewable energy infrastructure. It's like discovering a whole new gold mine within the sector.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. As the world shifts towards more sustainable energy sources, it's going to require massive investments in infrastructure. I imagine construction and engineering firms that can seize these opportunities will be, well, they'll be sitting on a gold mine.
Yeah, and it's not just about building new structures either. Think about like retrofitting existing buildings to make them more energy efficient.
Oh, right.
That's a whole other area of potential growth within this sector.
Okay, let's move on to industrial manufacturing. The PwC report here highlights companies, streamlining and specializing their operations. It's like they're refining their tools and techniques to become these master goldsmiths.
Yeah, we're seeing a wave of divestitures as companies shed non-core assets to focus on their strengths. But at the same time, there's also this surge in investments in these like cutting-edge technologies. It's a two-pronged approach to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, and the report gives a really interesting example too. Siemens, the industrial giant, acquired a company called Altair for its expertise in AI-powered manufacturing. That's a clear sign that companies are betting big on tech to, optimize their production processes.
Yeah, it's like witnessing the next evolution of the Industrial Revolution,
Totally.
where data and algorithms are the new tools of the trade.
It's exciting, but it also raises some questions, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure.
Like, what does this increased automation mean for the average worker? Could it lead to job displacement?
That's a crucial question. While increased automation can undoubtedly lead to efficiency gains, it also brings up these concerns about the future of work.
Uh-huh.
Like, will these technological advancements create enough new jobs to offset the ones that might be lost? That's a challenge that, policymakers and business leaders need to address.
Absolutely. Now let's zoom out for a second and look at the role of private equity in all of this.
Okay.
The report highlights that private equity firms are sitting on a mountain of dry powder.
Oh, yeah.
Think of it like they've got this treasure chest overflowing with cash ready to be invested.
It's as if they're the savvy prospectors, carefully evaluating the landscape, looking for the most promising claims to stake their fortunes on. And they're particularly interested in sectors ripe for consolidation, like the ones we've been discussing.
So they're not just sitting on their gold, they're actively looking for ways to, multiply it by investing in and reshaping these industries.
Exactly. And private equity's role is fascinating. They can act as catalysts. injecting capital and expertise to transform entire sectors. While that can sometimes be disruptive, it can also lead to innovation and growth.
It'll be interesting to see how their influence shapes these sectors in 2025. Okay, let's talk about something that's becoming increasingly important in the business world. Sustainability. It's no longer just a buzzword. It's this core value that's influencing M&A decisions.
It's like companies are realizing that sustainable practices aren't just good for the planet, but they're also good for business.
Yeah.
Consumers are demanding it. Investors are prioritizing it. Regulations are increasingly requiring it. It's become a key factor in determining a company's long-term value and success.
And the report gives the example of manufacturers shifting toward more sustainable materials in their production processes. It's not just about reducing emissions anymore. It's about embedding sustainability into every aspect of the business.
Yeah, and this trend is only going to gain momentum. If you're looking to understand the future of business, understanding the role of sustainability is crucial. It's like recognizing that the most valuable treasures are the ones that contribute to a healthier and more sustainable world.
I like that. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the rebound in global M&A activity and the energy transition reshaping industries to the rise of private equity and sustainability as these key forces. It's clear that the business world is in a state of flux, with both challenges and opportunities on the horizon. But what does it all mean? How do we make sense of this complex landscape?
Yeah, it feels like we've been panning for gold in all these different streams and finding these little nuggets of insight in each sector. But how do we put all the pieces together?
Well, what's so fascinating is that these trends, they're not happening in isolation, right? They're interconnected, influencing and shaping each other in this complex dance of cause and effect.
For instance, that rise in domestic M&A driven by geopolitical uncertainty, well, that could impact how quickly the energy transition is adopted in certain regions.
Yeah, it really is like this giant puzzle where each piece connects to and influences the others. And figuring out how these pieces fit together can help us see the bigger picture, anticipate what might happen next, and maybe even spot those golden opportunities.
Exactly. The PwC report, it's a great starting point. It's like a treasure map highlighting the major landmarks.
Right.
But it also prompts us to ask, what lies beyond these marked territories? Remember, this report primarily focuses on large companies.
Uh-huh.
But what about the smaller players, the startups, the individual investors? What opportunities are out there for them?
That's a great question. I'm picturing these nimble startups as like prospectors, finding those overlooked veins of gold that the bigger companies might miss. Maybe
Yeah.
they can, capitalize on the divestitures of larger companies or partner with them to fill specific needs related to, the energy transition or digital transformation.
Precisely. And for individual investors, maybe there are opportunities to invest in specific sectors or technologies that are poised for growth based on these trends. The key is to use this deep dive as a launching point, a springboard to explore further and discover those hidden gems.
I like that. So, dear listener, we challenge you to think like a treasure hunter. What nuggets of insight stood out to you in this deep dive? What connections did you make? And most importantly, how can you apply this knowledge? Maybe it informs your work, your investment decisions, or even just your understanding of the world around you.
Remember, the future isn't something that just happens to us. We're actively shaping it with the choices we make every day.
Yeah.
And by understanding these trends, you're not just observing the future, you're becoming a part of creating it.
That's so well said. We would love to hear your thoughts, your insights, even your own predictions. Feel free to share them with us on social media or wherever you listen to this podcast. Until next time, happy exploring.